Hello everyone, International Rations here again, and what I have for you today is this Spanish Armed Forces single meal ration. This one is for lunch, and it is the B2 menu. As you can see, it's printed in 3 languages, which are Spanish, English, and French. This has just expired in September of 2024, which is what those black letters say there. You probably can't see them on the camera, but it should be nice and fresh since it just expired last month. Without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get right into this. I like the packaging. It's kind of a tough, sort of military green plastic packaging. And it looks like there's some sort of a box inside. Alright, here we go. Let's go ahead and open this and see what we have. Looks like we have a contents list over here. We'll save that for later. First up, we have this. It's some sort of soup, I believe. I could be wrong about that. I'll translate all this later. We have some sort of a candy or gum. We have a fairly large tin. We have a similar tin. This one is round. Another tin. Another tin, a bit smaller, perhaps a pate. I believe this is some sort of an isotonic beverage powder with vitamin C. And it looks like we have another one of the same kind. A third. And a fourth. In here is some sort of cream. It looks like this is a fluoride dental toothpaste. We have a hexamine tablet, which seems to have broken open just a little bit and has a little bit of residue everywhere. Another 2 hexamine tablets right here. A matchbook. Looks like we have 10 napkins. These are also open, which is interesting. And then last but not least, we have a foldable little Esbit heating stove for the fuel tablets. So I'm going to go ahead and get everything sorted, and I will prepare this lunch, and I'll see you right in a minute. Alright, so I figured before we went ahead with the main courses, we could start off with our appetizers. This here appears to be some kind of pate, although I don't believe it mentions the flavor. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up. Alright, it's very tightly packed. As you can see, the top made an impression, but without any further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and try this. It's a very soft pate, much softer than some of those I've had previously. Let's go ahead and see if this is any good. It's definitely one of the stronger pates that I've had, and you can definitely taste some kind of strong iron content in it. It's interesting that it's very soft, not like many pates that I've had in the past. But I'm going to go ahead and try this on top of one of these crackers I have here. In the Spanish military, it's my understanding that any sort of bread or crackers are issued separately to the ration, which is why we don't have any in the ration. So I just went ahead and went to the store and got these to try with anything that might go well with the cracker. Without any further ado, I'm going to go see how this tastes. So I would definitely say it tastes better on a cracker or biscuit, whatever you'd like to call these. I think the biscuit cracker really cuts through some of the iron taste in that, and I'm sure a lot of people like a really strong iron flavor to their pates. However, I'm not one of those people. It did also occur to me that it's possible some of that iron taste might be because of this metal can, but I'm not sure about that. Either way, it seems like it's a pretty good quality pate. It's not completely to my taste, but it definitely doesn't seem like a quality issue. It's just not one of my favorite flavors to ever have. But I'm going to go eat a little bit more of this, and then we can start on the next appetizer. Alright, so before we go on to that second appetizer, which will be these sardines here, I'm going to go ahead and cleanse my palate a bit with these Polvo Isotonico Defaticante con Vitamin C, which translates to some sort of a vitamin C isotonic beverage. It doesn't seem to include any instructions with how much water to prepare this, so I'm just going to go ahead and put a couple in this glass, and hope I can get the right amount of water for how strong these taste. Alright, so first up, I'm going to try it like this. It's a pretty cloudy beverage, and it might need a lot more water, but I want to go ahead and see how this tastes with this amount of water. I quite like it like that. It's kind of a medicinal tasting vitamin C drink. It's very light, and it doesn't really have a particular flavor other than just kind of vitamin C flavor. It's not necessarily orange tasting, but vitamin C drinks, especially medical sort of immune system vitamin C drinks, have a kind of distinctive vitamin C flavor to them. And I would definitely say that's the flavor that I'm getting here. So I would imagine that these drinks are less for having a nice, flavorful drink and more for trying to keep up your immune system in the field to make sure that you don't get any terrible, debilitating sickness when you're out in the middle of nowhere and you're a soldier. So, very important to try to keep up all of your hygiene and your immune system and everything like that. It's not bad at all, and it doesn't taste like a medicine, but it also doesn't taste like a sports drink or an isotonic beverage. It just has kind of a light vitamin C beverage flavor to it. Alright, so next up, I'm going to go ahead and open up these sardines. As far as I'm aware, you are typically supposed to eat them cold, so that's what I'm going to do. I think I've had sardines maybe once or twice before, but never out of a ration, and never Spanish sardines. Alright, there we go. Can gave me a little bit of trouble, but wasn't too bad. I'm going to go ahead and just empty this into our little dish here. Hopefully it'll fit okay. Alright, so that is certainly interesting. You have the whole fillet here, skin and all. I would imagine the bones would be in there as well. It's a small fish, however, so maybe you eat the bones. I really don't know. I'm just going to split this open. And without any further ado, I'm going to take a bite. Hopefully this is how you're supposed to eat them, but I really am not sure. Here we go. Honestly, these don't taste bad to me at all. It's a pretty interesting flavor. It's sort of a cross between a tuna and perhaps a slightly more fishy tasting fish. I don't know quite how to describe it, but they seem pretty good quality, and the tomato sauce that they're in really adds to the flavor as well. I'm going to go ahead and take another bite here. And yeah, that's a very interesting flavor. I would definitely say the flavor this tastes the most like is a tuna. But if you've ever had canned sardines before, this is probably more or less what it tastes like, just with a bit of a more tomato sauce flavor to them. I personally like them cold. I think they probably taste good heated up as well. However, I honestly quite like them just the way they are here. I'm not sure if this is something that's done very often, but I'm going to go ahead and grab a piece here and just put it onto this biscuit. It's a bit of an odd combination, but if it looks odd and it tastes good, then I'd say that's a win. And yeah, honestly, I like that quite a bit. It doesn't have any large bones, and if it does have bones, which I would assume it does, they definitely have been softened in the cooking process. I'm going to go ahead and just put a huge piece here, and if you had some bread, you could definitely make a nice little fish sandwich with this. And the only thing that I could see some people not liking taste-wise is that they do have a bit of a strong fishy taste. Personally, I don't mind that at all, but I'm sure some people would. But I'm going to go ahead and finish this up, and then we can get on to the main course. Alright, so while I wait for my water to boil to heat up the main course, I'm going to go ahead and try this gum here. Alright, here we go. It's a singular tablet, and it's very large. It's probably about twice the size of a regular tablet of gum, which works out pretty well since these packages usually give you 2 pieces of gum. I'm going to go ahead and bite off half of this so we can see inside. Alright, just a regular piece of gum in there. It's a nice piece of gum. It has a very strong and flavorful peppermint flavor to it. Usually, gum is the type of thing which you won't typically really notice when you have it, but if you like gum and you don't have it, then you typically begin to notice it. So I always think it's really nice when you have the more smaller things included into the ration, such as pieces of gum. In this case, they even included some toothpaste as well as some disinfectant. So it's those little things that can really make a ration a lot better, especially if you're actually out there in the field and you don't have access to anything else. So overall, it's a good piece of gum, and it's always welcome to have these little pieces of gum and toothpaste and little things like that in these ration kits. Alright, so next up, our main is almost done, but I'm going to go ahead and make this instant soup. This translates to being some kind of a vegetable soup. Alright, and there we go. Let's go ahead and add this here. Alright, got a little bit of the powder down on this can, but it's not a problem. Looks like it has some large chunks of something. I'm not sure what that is. It could be potato or something like that. But I'm going to go ahead and grab some hot water and add it to this, and then I'll be right back. Alright, here we go. Let's stir this up. It looks like it has a lot of herbs and spices and things like that in there. It's a slightly thicker soup than you usually get with instant soup, which is nice to see. And I'm still not 100% sure what those larger chunks that are floating at the top are, but I'm going to go ahead and let this cool for just a little bit, and then I'll give that a try. Alright, so it looks like that main course is ready, and this main course is meatballs and peas. Let's go ahead and try to open this up without touching the can too much, since it is pretty warm, and I could easily burn myself on the metal parts. Let's go ahead and drain this just a little bit. Alright, here's that main course. Let's go ahead and get this plated. Alright, there we go. I'm going to go ahead and grab a spoon for that, since it looks like it's more of the consistency of sort of a stew than more of a solid food. And I'll be right back and we'll get right into this. Alright, that's looking nice and warm and it looks really good. I'm going to go ahead and say a quick prayer before I get into this. Alright, here we go. Let's see if this is any good. First impressions are pretty good. The meatballs are cooked perfectly so far. First impressions are pretty good. So far the meatball is cooked perfectly, and so are the peas. The sauce is a little bit strange, and it's maybe some sort of a kind of beef gravy. I'm going to go ahead and give this another taste and try to pinpoint that down. And the sauce that it's in is very unique. I would say it's probably some sort of beef or chicken stock that is heavily salted. It's really interesting, and it's definitely not bad at all. In fact, I quite like it. It is a little bit salty, especially if you don't have that much access to water that day. But overall, I really do like it, and after all, salt is kind of an essential mineral anyway. So it is nice that you get some of that salt with your meal. Alright, and now that that's cooled a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and try some of our soup, vegetable soup with this. As you can see, it's quite significantly solidified while I left it to cool down. I would guess there's some sort of like starch or something like that in there, but I'm not 100% sure about that. Without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and try this. Overall, there's not very much bursting flavor, and it's neither really that good or that bad. It's more of a toned down and very simple kind of dish, and there's only so much you can do when it's an instant soup mix. It doesn't have that much salt, which is nice when the main dish already has quite a bit of salt in it. Overall, it's very nice and it's very pleasant, and if you're cold, you're definitely really going to love this soup, especially when it's nice and hot like this. I would guess that the solid pieces are some sort of a potato or something like that, but I would have to check the ingredients to be sure about that. Overall, both the soup and the main course are quite good, but I would definitely say the main course is a bit better than the soup, and it's just really good. Overall, both the main course and the soup are pretty good, but I would say that the main course is a bit better than the soup. There's nothing wrong with the soup at all, and as I said, it's a pretty good soup, especially if you're on a cold winter's night or something like that. But this is also a really nice hot meal, and overall I just really like the flavors, and I think it has a bit more flavor to it. Overall, it's a really good main course, and I'm really quite enjoying it. I'm going to finish it up and we'll get right on to this fruit cocktail. Alright, now that I've finished up with the soup and the main course, I'm about ready to try this fruit cocktail. One thing I will mention about the soup is I did mention before that it wasn't that salty. However, I now realize, now that I finished it up, that that was because, well, I let it cool and thicken. A lot of that salt and starch and stuff like that kind of settled down at the bottom. So down at the bottom, it was pretty salty and there was kind of a thick starch residue to it. Wasn't that bad or anything like that, but you definitely get a lot of salt for this meal, especially, as I mentioned, if you aren't going to have a lot of access to water, you might not want to have that much salt in your meal. But if you do, a lot of salt really does you no harm. So, without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into this fruit cocktail. Alright, here we go. Looks pretty much like your standard fruit cocktail that you would get pretty much anywhere, including here in the US. Let's go ahead without any further ado and go ahead and try this. There's not really too much that can be said about a fruit cocktail. They all mostly taste the same, and this is really no exception. You have all the regular fruits. You have those more yellow kind of mango, I believe this would be. And then you have the more pale kind of crunchy fruit, which I can't think of the name of right now. But it's all pretty standard what you have in a fruit cocktail. This particular one doesn't seem to have any cherries. However, one thing I will say that is a bit different from the fruit cocktails you have in the US, I would say there's probably a little less added sweetener and high fructose corn syrup to the syrup that they're in, because it is a bit more of a toned down flavor to it rather than a very sweet, super sugary, syrupy flavor to it, which personally I do prefer. I do think that the syrups in the US fruit cocktails are just kind of too thick and sweet for my liking. But like I said, it's a pretty regular fruit cocktail and it doesn't taste that different from anything that you get in a store here in the US or probably anywhere else in the world. Alright, so that concludes it for the food part of this ration. We do still have a couple extra things to try out here. We have this instant disinfectant, and I believe this is some sort of gel hydroalcohol or something like that. There's very little of it in here, so let's go ahead and open it. I don't really see any sort of particular flap or like perforated ear on it, so I'm just going to tear it here. And I would assume this is just a gel that you rub into your hands. And there seems to be nothing in here, interestingly enough. That's very strange. I have to wonder if possibly this somehow didn't get filled. Let me just tear it the whole way through and open this up. As you can see, this package is dry as a bone. There's really not even a hint, that's just a piece of plastic liner, of any sort of gel or anything like that. So interestingly, it looks like this was accidentally left unfilled and still included. Thankfully, I do have a sink, of course, so I can wash my hands. But if you're out in the field, this would be your best way of disinfecting any sort of surface, or of course your hands or anything like that. And it looks like they just skipped this one. I would assume that's the only reasonable explanation I can think of for that. So very interesting. Little disappointing. Doesn't make a huge difference to me, but if I were a soldier in a field, and especially if I were a bit of a clean freak, I'd definitely be a little disappointed about that. But without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and grab a toothbrush and a little pot of water, and then we'll try out this cream dental fluoride toothpaste. Alright, so I went ahead and just grabbed a little travel toothbrush. I'm not sure what kind of toothbrush the Spanish military issues, but I would assume it's something like this since it's nice and compact. Without any further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and rip this right open. Alright, there we go. Whoa. Here we go. It's a very light gel. And yeah, that was a very interesting toothpaste. I'm not sure how well you were able to see it, but it was a very runny toothpaste. and I almost half wondered if it's something you just kind of put in your mouth and swish around like mouthwash. But on the English translation here, it does refer to it as toothpaste, so I could only assume that you do put it on your toothbrush and just brush your teeth, and then either spit it out or maybe swallow it. I'm not really sure how they do it. But yeah, so that was a very interesting toothpaste. It wasn't anything too special, although it was very unique, just how runny it was. Maybe that's super common in Spain, but I've never seen a toothpaste like that here. It had a nice, kind of refreshing, sort of minty fresh flavor to it. And yeah, nothing bad about that toothpaste at all. It's very interesting, and it's nice to see that dental hygiene isn't neglected in the Spanish military. And that does it for this video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I must say it was definitely a really good ration. Everything in the ration seemed like it was of pretty high quality, and honestly, I did like everything. The pate was a little bit strange to me, but I'm pretty sure it was more of a liver flavored and high iron pate, which is just a personal thing, which I personally don't like that flavor. But I was able to eat it just fine, and it was pretty good on a cracker. And there definitely wasn't anything, as far as I could tell, wrong with the quality or anything like that. It's just a personal thing that I don't really like that flavor, and I really can't blame the ration for that. So overall, I would say it was pretty good, just not a personal favorite of mine. The main course, on the other hand, I really enjoyed, and it was definitely one of the better ones I've had. Although I do seem to say that for a lot of them, I just haven't had a really bad ration yet, which I can be thankful for that. And I really enjoyed the sardines in the tomato sauce as well. They were quite well prepared, and it didn't seem like there were any sort of additives or anything like that. And you really can't complain to the quality when they just packed the whole fish in there, skin and everything, minus the head. And they seemed like they were cooked very well, and none of the bones were too hard or anything like that. I also enjoyed the soup. It wasn't the best I've ever had, but there was nothing wrong with it really. It just did have a little bit of the starch in the bottom because I let it sit a bit, but that's kind of on me. I probably should have gave it a bit of a stir. And as for the last item in the ration, I also enjoyed the fruit cup. Fruit cups aren't super high up on my list of sort of like sweets or desserts, but this one was pretty good, and I didn't think it was too sweet or had too much high fructose corn syrup or anything like that. Overall, I really did just enjoy the ration. I thought it was very well put together, and the little things that were in there were nice as well, such as the toothpaste and the gum. I believe that's the first time I actually had toothpaste in a ration like this before, so that's nice to see. I would imagine most militaries do issue dental products to their soldiers, but when you do pack it in a ration like this, there's really no way that it can be missed. Assuming that your soldiers are eating, they're going to have toothpaste as well, which I think is a nice touch, personally. But overall, that does it for the video, and I really hope you enjoyed it. If you're one of my more long-term viewers, then I do apologize for how long it took to get this video out. I have just had a little bit of trouble getting the time and location for filming some videos. For the next few months, I anticipate my schedule will be a little more irregular. With any luck, I'll hopefully get the next video out before too long. But if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a like as well as a comment with any thoughts you had or a recommendation for the next ration. If you didn't like the video, as always, feel free to give it a dislike as well as a comment with some constructive criticism on how I could improve. And if you're interested in seeing videos like this in the future, go ahead and subscribe and hit the bell notification button. That's all for today, and I really hope I'll see you on my next video.